Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features Uncanny X-Men number 173, cover dated September 1983. So this is an iconic cover by Paul Smith, featuring Wolverine here, claws extended, hunched over on the hunt, and I love the way that his upper lip is taut against his front teeth, showing the determination on his face. Paul Smith inking his own pencils here and inking with a brush. And of course we've got Rogue in the background because we have Rogue teaming up with Wolverine here. And this is her first appearance in the corner box identification of who's on the X-Men team. So let's open this one up to our first page. And the story picks up in Tokyo, which was the location of the previous issue. Most of the X-Men were poisoned by Viper. They're in intensive care in hospital. Meanwhile, Wolverine is on the hunt for a Yakuza leader in order to get information on where Silver Samurai might be. So we've got first-person narration by Wolverine, and here we have the title of the story, To Have and Have Not. And the creator credits are Chris Claremont, writer, Paul Smith, penciler, Bob Wiacek, inker, Tom Orzechowski, letterer, and Glynis Wine, colorist. So really nice, open, clear, minimalistic line artwork by Paul Smith here, rendering the Ginza district of Tokyo. And I love the little detail of the reflection here in the puddle of the scene above. Really nicely done. And I was thinking before making this video, in the last video on Uncanny X-Men 172, I pointed out how Paul Smith was taking over from Frank Miller's art on the Wolverine Limited series, some aspects of panel design and layout. And there are features of his art that are also a little reminiscent of Miller. But another influence to my mind, and you let me know what you think about this in the comments to the video, is Marshall Rogers. So Marshall Rogers, famous for his work on Doctor Strange for Marvel Comics and also Batman for DC. And I see a similarity in the style of figure work between the two artists and their clean and open art style as well. So Wolverine is questioning a bunch of Yakuza gangsters in the Ginza district. And something like this is a great double page half spread here, where he has got this gangster up against the wall and he's threatening to punch him, not pop his claws. And we've got Rogue leaning up against the bar there and just watching, amused at the situation. And recently I reviewed X-Men number 21 by Fabian Nicieza and Brandon Peterson. And I'm pretty sure that the double page half split, or the double page spread, the half double page spread in that issue, which has Wolverine, it's like a mirror image of this, holding Psylocke by the throat, but with his claws extended and threatening to pop them. I pretty much think that Peterson is homaging that double page half spread in X-Men 21. Let me know what you think about that in the comments as well. So from behind Rogue there comes another Yakuza gangster whose sai basically bends on her shoulder because Rogue of course has the invulnerability of Miss Marvel, and so she grabs him by the throat and tosses him no doubt out the window there, the broken window, onto the street. Wolverine pops his claws and he makes it plain to this guy that he needs to talk regarding the Yakuza leader's whereabouts, or he'll kill him. So Wolverine's narrative caption here, he says, "Punk's a survivor. He talks, figuring whatever happens, he'll come out ahead. Either I'll nail the old man or vice versa." So Wolverine lets the guy go once he's got the information, and Rogue asks him, "What's our next move, Wolvie?" And he says, as he lights up here, I love this panel too, he says, "Nabatone, he'll lead us to Viper and the Silver Samurai," and then things get nasty. So then we've got a little recap of what happened in the previous issue and the fact that Storm has disappeared as far as Wolvie is concerned. But we pick up with her because we saw her survive an explosion in a warehouse in the previous issue, and now Yukio, a former lover of Wolverine's, is leading an injured Storm around Tokyo and to the dwelling place of a Yakuza member. But he basically says the words out on both of you from the Oyabun himself, a death mark. Forgive me, Yukio, there's no sanctuary for you anywhere. So she's disgusted at that, but next of all, they find themselves unexpectedly facing a gang in the alleyway. And Yukio, who's got a very devil-may-care type attitude, thinks that the 3-to-1 odds are against the gang. And Storm here is thinking pretty much like, what's she gotten into? We face death and worse. How can Yukio be so lighthearted and uncaring? We are trapped in this alley. We are unarmed, wounded. My control over my mutant elemental powers is marginal at best. Oh well, she thinks, you only die once. So a new aggressive attitude from Storm here, and shortly after her fight with Callisto for leadership of the Morlocks, and this is part of Claremont's ongoing development of Storm's character away from the serene goddess at one with Mother Earth into this earthier, grimmer version of herself, and tougher version as well. I just want to comment on the establishing shot here, this top-down view of this Tokyo street, and the traditional tiling here looks very well. And again, I would say that Paul Smith is influenced in that by looking at not just photo reference, but also Miller's Wolverine Limited series, where Miller similarly drew those kinds of buildings extremely well. And then we go back with Rogue and Wolverine, so they make their way to the Yakuza leaders' home. And this pretty much is, in my opinion, the panel that inspired the cover. So you see the way Wolverine's hunched over. He's in a hunting mode with Rogue jogging behind. His claws aren't popped, but yeah, very much evocative of that cover you see there. And I like the way that the storytelling is done here by Paul Smith as Rogue rounds the corner and she trips this electronic security that sends out this robot that's about to blast them, and Wolverine manages to sweep her feet from under her and save her from the blast. Nicely done, and nicely spotted blacks here for the shadows. And then we get this weird little moment where Rogue says to Wolverine that he's her hero. A save like that deserves a reward, and she moves in to kiss him, but he puts his fist right under her jaw and says, don't ever pull a stunt like that, make a threat like that to me or any other X-Man, even as a joke, understand. And she's taken aback and she says she didn't mean any harm, that's why you're still breathing. And we get in his first person narrative caption the fact, of course, that a good friend of his, Carol Danvers, was badly injured by Rogue. And as he says here, her victim was an old friend of mine. That's not easily forgotten or forgiven. So he's got some serious reason to have antipathy towards Rogue. But then he comes across the room where the Yakuza leader is sitting stationary, and Wolverine discovers that he's actually dead. He's joined his ancestors over a week ago, so he tells Rogue not to come any closer because he isn't very pretty. So it's interesting, like Wolverine's got this tough, not easily forgotten or forgiven attitude to Rogue regarding Carol Danvers, but he's still concerned about her sensibilities and welfare by telling her to keep back because she's younger than him. He keeps addressing her as a kid. And, so there's that kind of balance and nuance in his attitude to Rogue, and it prepares us for what's coming later in the issue, I think. So Wolverine realizes that they've been suckered. While we're out in the boondocks chasing smoke, the samurai has a clear shot at Mariko and the X-Men. Somebody has been impersonating the deceased Yakuza leader. And who that is a mystery that will be resolved partly in this issue and subsequent issues. So then we're elsewhere again. We're back in the alley with Yukio and Storm taking out the gang members easily, and then we've got Storm reveling in what she's done. She says, "Whatever it means, this madness of yours that has infected me, I welcome it." So we're going to see a physical manifestation of what that means later on in the issue. You know, Paul Smith's doing great work in this issue, but this upshot of Storm here is a little bit off. It's a tricky one to pull off artistically. So he hasn't quite got that down right. It reads well enough, but it's not exactly right. You know, in terms of the anatomy here and perspective. And then we're back at the hospital where the X-Men are recovering and where Mariko is being guarded by security servicemen. State security servicemen. These guys get it in the back with these shuriken, these throwing stars, all of them. And who is it? It's Viper with a cadre of ninjas. And she instructs them to be quick, be efficient. She wants no witnesses, no survivors. And boom, Rogue flies out of the hospital room. So Wolverine and Rogue got there before Viper and the ninjas. She takes out 4 of them, it seems. Here, I love the speed lines. And so they're all scattered. And Viper here, though, is thinking they should keep the brat busy, the ninjas, long enough for me to find the Silver Samurai and finish what we came here to do. So now we're getting to a famous sequence in this particular issue. So Wolvie is here and he says, "There's just me up here, Samurai, show yourself." So he's obviously got the scent of the Silver Samurai. And the samurai says, "You will not find me lacking in courage, Gaijin. Do tell, that why you brought an army? I need no help to claim my birthright, dog," says Harada, "or to deal with you." And here we go, we're back into the first person narration. So no more talk between these two. And we'll see that very particularly in subsequent pages. But I really love these 3 panels, horizontal panels here. This is all inspired by Frank Miller and the Wolverine Limited series. And just look at the way that Wolverine is launching out here at Silver Samurai, as he's got his energy samurai sword ready to swing around. And look at this. This is the degree of thought that's gone into the fight choreography. So Silver Samurai swings the sword around, but Wolverine parries with his adamantium claws on his left hand. And watch this, his right hand is over on his left hand side, and then he swings it backhand, slashing across Silver Samurai's abdomen. That's amazing. That reads so well. Such great fight choreography, and really great body language on Wolverine as well. And here we go. Pity this ad is here, but nonetheless. Oh yeah, something else I want to point out is what Glynis Oliver is doing with the colors here. So we start with green, we move to yellow, then we've got an orange background, a darker orange background, and then we're into red. And when Glynis Oliver puts red as the background of a panel, it's an indication, it's one of her tropes for violent action, often involving Wolverine. So here we have more of this amazing fight choreography, and Wolverine slashing at Silver Samurai's helmet here, so loosening it on his head for what comes later, taking off some the front guard over his face. Silver Samurai has him in a headlock. What's going to happen next? And this is amazing. Just look at these 2 pages here. So we've got 4 horizontal panels, tiers of panels, and we have action to action transitions in all of these panels, just as in the previous page. Just stunning. And Claremont here exercising restraint. No Stan Lee style witty banter, threats, goading. Both warriors focused on the fight. And Wolverine here in this first panel, just look at the violence of it. The energy samurai sword just thrust right through him, through his abdomen and out his back. And it reminds me of, you know, the famous scene in Daredevil 181 when Bullseye kills Elektra and he puts the sai right through her. And it was a trope of Miller's that the blade wouldn't come out through the costume. So you would see the cloth stretched over the blade just at the moment that before it would break through. But here we have the actual blade just pushed all the way through. No blood though, but you know, this is Comics Code approved comic. And then he pulls it out of Wolverine, and Wolverine just sticks his 3 adamantium claws right into Silver Samurai. Silver Samurai hits him in the back of the neck. That has to be only stopped by his adamantium laced spine at the bottom of his skull. That's what's stopping the blade there. Just look at the sheer violence of that and the imagination behind the fight choreography as well. This is a great moment here where he grabs Silver Samurai's forearm and he breaks his arm. So of course that weakens Silver Samurai, like his sword arm there. He doesn't have another blade to work with, and with his left hand, Wolverine gets ready here just to take him out through the neck, take him through the jugular, decapitate him. And then Mariko arrives out of the hospital room and screams out, "No, enough blood has been spilled. Let this be an end to it. My half-brother has lost. Grant him his life." Wolverine says something very prescient here. "I do that, Miko. This'll never be over. He'll keep coming back till one of you is dead." And so it turns out to be, years later. So, tremendous sequence there, justly famous. And now we've got another famous bit coming up from this issue. So Viper's still alive, and she waits or calls over Silver Samurai, who passes out from the pain maybe of the broken arm and getting slashed in the abdomen. And then she starts blasting at Mariko. Now Wolverine here has placed himself bodily in front of Mariko to protect her, but Rogue arrives back, having dealt with the ninjas, and she sacrifices herself by taking the blast from Viper's gun and pushes Wolverine and Mariko through the hospital door. Wolverine thinks the kid's either a show-off or she doesn't know her own strength. That shove flaming near puts Mariko and me into orbit. So this is kind of depicting Rogue here as almost like a Superman type character in terms of the speed to get ahead of this blast and take it in the chest, more or less. But Viper keeps blasting with her gun, and even Rogue thinks here, and this is nicely done, this silhouette, as she's taking the blast straight to the side. That blaster must be something else. I can actually feel its effect, but I've got to keep blocking Viper's shot no matter what. And why is Rogue doing what she's doing? You know, a former member of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Lady Mariko was kind to me. She accepted me right off. I won't let her come to any harm. And we saw that in the previous issue where Mariko was indeed welcoming of Rogue, while the other X-Men, while Wolverine in particular was deeply skeptical of her and hostile even. So Wolverine bounds out of the hospital room, having assured himself that Mariko's protected. And then fortunately Viper's gun blows up from overheating. But Rogue has taken a severe blasting and is on the point of passing out. Viper teleports away with Silver Samurai to fight another day. And then we get this really important moment between Wolverine and Rogue, where she says, "So much for my brilliant career and I think my life." And he says to her, "Don't talk stupid, my healing factor can save you." And she says selflessly, "No, you need that to save yourself. If I absorb your powers, Wolverine, you may die." He says laconically, "My risk. Sides, darling, who's going to stop me? I'm a man who pays his debts, Rogue. You sacrificed yourself for Mariko. It's only fair I return the compliment." And so he kisses her. And just look at the tremendous use of white space here and the smallness of the image. So we don't get to see the kiss, but we know what's happening here. It's the reverse of what happened earlier. And it's Wolverine putting his own life on the line to save Rogue's. Someone of whom he said he won't forget or forgive what she did to Carol Danvers. And then it is a week later. The ancestral seat of Clan Yashida in Miyagi Prefecture some 300 kilometers north of Tokyo. And Mariko is out here. It's the evening before her wedding, and she's nervous and she wants to get it over and done with, but she says, "I do so love you." She's thinking of Logan. And then this mysterious figure with coattails and boots arrives. Who's there? A friend, Lady Mariko, who wishes you and your consort well. And what's going on here in terms of the eyes and what happens to Mariko? And who could it be as he walks away? Too far from us to identify who he is. And she drops her bouquet of flowers and asks, "What happened to me? I must be more distracted than I thought." Imagine talking to myself like that. So she has no memory of this mysterious encounter. And then it's the next day. And great establishing shot here of the house, the Yoshida clan house. And then we have new guests arriving for the wedding. Wolverine's all dressed up in traditional costume. And we have the arrival of Lorna Dane. It's basically the Summers family. So it's Lorna Dane, Alex Summers, and Christopher Summers, Corsair. That's Scott and Alex's father. And then this is the first meeting of the X-Men with Madeline Pryor. So Scott introduces them to a very special friend, Madeline Pryor. And Lilandra, who's there with Professor X, thinks she's seen a ghost. So she says, "Are you blind? Look at her. She's the evil one reborn." She thinks it's Phoenix. And Professor X says, "She resembles Jean Grey, but that is all. Phoenix is dead." So Lilandra explains that her reaction was automatic. She couldn't help herself. And Scott says, "I understand, Lilandra, no harm done." But he thinks to himself privately, "But I wish I could be as certain as you, Professor, that Madeline isn't Jean reincarnated." And that's something that he's been wondering about and having some doubts about himself, discovering in the previous issue that Madeline Pryor's plane crash, the one that she was the sole survivor of, happened at the exact same moment that Dark Phoenix killed herself on the moon. So then we have another arrival. Remember, Storm's been missing, and so here she is, and she's got a new look. And it is variously known as Punk or Mohawk Storm, with wearing biker leathers. And so Kitty is shocked. "Your clothes, your hair, what have you done?" And Storm says, "A new look. Do you like it?" And Kitty just has this reaction that I think a lot of readers, it turns out at the time, like 50-50 readers had, where she runs off almost crying, "How could you?" So she's quite shocked by the change in style for Storm. And there is a story by Paul Smith about this. Paul Smith was asked by Louise Jones to design new looks for Storm, and he submitted this one as a joke, as part of the portfolio of different possible looks. And Louise Jones basically said, "Okay, look, we're going to get flack whatever decision we make in terms of changing Storm's look, so let's go with the most radical one." And so that is the origin of Punk Storm. But of course, Claremont works a good reason for it into the story in terms of the time that Storm has spent with Yukio in Tokyo. Even straight-laced, well, not even, but especially straight-laced Scott comments, "It's a rather striking change, Aurora. Why'd you do it?" "I had my reasons, Scott. Am I not allowed?" And then she sees Madeline, and of course she is shocked by the similarity between Madeline and Jean, and Scott apologizes. "My fault. I should have realized the effect Madeline would have had on everyone and warned you beforehand." So there you go. And then we're getting ready for the wedding ceremony itself, and there's a nice little comic moment coming up here. So everyone's in, almost everyone is in traditional Japanese costume. Not Madeline though, not Scott. And we have this moment where Kitty is acting as Mariko's sort of maid of honor for the Japanese. It's a Shinto wedding ceremony. So she says, "Can you look after, keep an eye on Lockheed? He shouldn't be any bother, he's snoozing." So Madeline obliges. and there she is getting ready to look into the swaddled blanket. Nice kid. I wish I had a sister like her. And being a pilot, I think Lockheed's a perfect name for her cat. This always cracks me up. And then just the look on her face, and I love the way that she just grabs Scott by his tie, and she says, "Scott, yes, Madeline, something the matter?" as she pulls him over by the tie. Just precisely who are these people and what the blazes have you gotten me into, as Lockheed yawns in her lap. That's funny stuff. And now we get to a shocking turn of events and twist at the end of the issue. So Mariko is here ready to marry in her traditional Shinto wedding garb. Wolverine is coming up for the ceremony, and then unexpectedly Mariko declares, "Stop the ceremony, Most Imperial Majesty," because the Emperor is there. "Honored guests, there will be no wedding." So Wolverine simply asks why, and she says, "Because, Gaijin, you are not worthy." So that is a shocking turn of events. We turn to the last page, and no dialogue, no narrative captions, just visual storytelling as she walks past Wolverine, and they're back to back, and the Japanese contingent are shocked at what they've witnessed. And she walks out of the ceremony room, and here's this guy with the coattails, smoking a cigarette, the mustache and mutton chops. Who is this? Do long-time readers recognize who it might be from these clues? And then we have the X-Men contingent in silence too, no word spoken, and Wolverine here with a single tear. So there you go. Quite an unexpected ending to this issue, and a tremendous issue it was too. So this issue, Colossus is answering the letters, and there you go. I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on Uncanny X-Men number 173. If you did, please like the video on YouTube, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.